Hello, my name is Alfred Mattingly, and I'm here to give you a rundown of what I found about the CLA Plus, which is the college exit exam assessment tool that you've asked me to review for you. So just an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. First, I'm going to give you a review of what the psychometric reliability and validity scores are going to be for the tool itself. We'll also be talking about some alternative assessment tools you might use if you decide against the CLA Plus. And then we'll also be talking about some utilization concerns for the tool that I have, as well as some options that you have for implementing the use of the tool for EKU, as well as evaluating its effectiveness after it's been implemented. So let's go ahead and get started with a quick review of what I found about the psychometric effectiveness of the CLA Plus. So just as a review, the CLA Plus is designed as an exit exam for college students to test their knowledge and abilities in fields that employers believe will be effective for their job placement, as well as also for graduate education as well. These fields include such things as problem solving, as written communication, writing style and effectiveness, critical thinking, things of that nature. So the reliability historically for the CLA Plus and similar past iterations of it has been very, very, very good. Historically, it sports a Cronbach alpha coefficient of 0.8, which is excellent. And that kind of describes its reliability overall on like an institution based scale. Recently, they have revised it to create the CLA Plus, which is what we're reviewing now. And the CLA Plus has added a new kind of response item that has effectively increased the individual-based reliability, something that past iterations of the CLA have struggled with. These new items have increased the reliability on the individual basis to a 0.87 and 0.85 for both the forms of the test that is used, respectively. So that is an excellent increase. As far as validity goes, CAE, the organization that has constructed the CLA Plus, has conducted some research based on participants who have taken the exam and how they feel the items on it seem to test the areas of competency that they were supposed to. And every area on that face validity scale has gotten really good feedback, with the exception of the math portion. Now, the people at CAE claim that this is because the math portion targets more critical thinking related to math as opposed to the more factual equation-based math that the students are more likely to identify with. So that may explain the discrepancy in the math section. However, I would like to see some more quantitative research on why that disconnect might exist rather than that kind of subjective hypothesis on it. But overall, face validity seems to be good, as well as constructive validity. Very strong correlations have been drawn between the critical thinking areas of the CLA Plus, for example, and other assessments that target specifically critical thinking, as well as for the other areas too. So it seems to be a very reliable and valid tool. So that is definitely a positive if you would like to incorporate it for EKU. One concern that did pop up for me when I was reviewing the literature is that there seems to be no real standard for it being used as a requirement for graduation. And in fact, kind of in the social zeitgeist about college exit exams being linked to a graduation requirement has been very negative overall. It's been shown to relate to very low student morale, a loss of institutional loyalty among students when they find out that it's a requirement for their graduation. So I personally would not recommend this be used as a graduation requirement, but rather it be used more for institutional research and possibly offered as a resource for students to add to their CV and resume to demonstrate their competence to enter the workforce. but not as a requirement. You have to score above a certain threshold in order to graduate. If you do not wish to use a CLA Plus, there are some alternatives that you can use. There's some alternative pathways you can go down for an exit assessment for your college students. One option you could do is to use portions of similar high school exams, such as the SAT or the GED exams. While those aren't targeted at collegiate level education, one would expect above average scores on those for college graduates. So that is more so if there's a low score that indicates something wrong rather than a true assessment of college education and competency. Another option is to utilize portions of the GRE. The GRE is designed to test competency and preparedness for postgraduate education. Now with the GRE, the exception there is that accruing the distribution rights for the GRE may prove very expensive and may prove to be a more expensive venture than you may want to embark on for this kind of project, which would be understandable. However, it may offer students kind of a chance to practice on the GRE and get some experience with that if they haven't had a chance to take it during their collegiate career. So that as well has both its advantages and disadvantages. One popular method of exit exams is that some colleges in the U.S. have begun to require kind of specialized projects and portfolios. So for example, education program seniors are required to provide a semester's worth of organized lesson plans for certain subjects. Or psychology graduates may be required to provide a counseling philosophy statement or something like that, something more focused on the individual's pursuit of a career and academic background instead of just a general thing to cover the entire institution. But this, of course, would take a lot more time and hands-on work with each individual. And then finally, you could construct your own developmental exit exam. This would help it be geared more towards the EKU population and EKU education specifically, rather than a national standard. However, this would not be an easy thing to construct, and this would take considerable time and resources to do so. So that may not be the best option in the long run. So those are kind of your options for alternatives. Now, if you do want to go for the CLA Plus, which again, statistically, very, very solid instrument, then I do have kind of a 4-step program for implementing it at EKU. So the first step of that, after you purchase the distribution rights for the CLA Plus, of course, is to inform students and faculty that this is going to be a new thing that they're going to have to do. It's important you don't completely blindside people by this just because of, again, the general kind of negative opinions of college exit exams among faculty and students, which if you'd like to read more about, you can check on the references that I attach with this presentation. So the best way I think to inform students and faculty and get them on board with this exam is to host focus groups with students and faculty where you kind of review what the exam is, why you believe it's important for them to take it upon their graduation. Clarify that it's a low-stakes exam. It's not going to be tied to their ability to graduate. It's just something to help them understand what their areas of improvement as well as strengths might be for entering the workforce. As well as I'm offered to sit in on faculty advisory sessions with students, give them the opportunity one-on-one to ask questions about it to make sure they understand what you want out of the assessment tool. After you kind of inform students and faculty about this to ensure that they're on board, the next step for implementation is going to be training for those who are going to be grading and interpreting the exam results. Presumably, EKU's admin department or somewhere in the education department possibly is going to have people who grade these exams as they are being completed. So it's important that they have the confidence and the abilities to grade them properly so that you get the most utility out of them and that your students get the most utility out of them as well. So in order for the training to go well, I have kind of a quick plan for that as well. One of them is to offer training sessions for them that blend both experiential and educational aspects, because those have been shown time and time again to provide the best results for training. So give them a lecture about what the CLA Plus is, why you want to use it, what kind of benefits it can offer, the nuts and bolts of how grading it works, but also give them some practice with it. Take some practice exams that have already been completed and distribute them to the training participants to see how well they do with it, see if they have any feedback for how they felt about grading them and interpreting the results, and make sure they have some real practice before they get thrown into the mass of exams they're going to have to grade and interpret every year. The next step to implementing the CLA Plus for EKU is to host a test run of it with some sample students. Take some students who are approaching graduation, have them complete the survey, especially if you do it online. Make sure they are comfortable with doing it, make sure everything works properly. And they get their feedback on how they felt about it. If they felt it was a good use of their time, if they felt it was an accurate test, if they had any technical problems that you may need to correct in future runs. And make sure you get a good practice run of it and before it's a legitimate part of the graduation process. And then finally, you want to support the diversity in your university population. So it's important to provide reasonable accommodations for those with disabilities and differences in language as well, so that they have an equal opportunity to succeed in this portion of their education, just like anybody else would. So that's kind of a general structure for implementing it. And of course, you want to find out if the thing works, right? You want to find out if it's a worthy investment after the first run and second run and third run of the assessment. And so here's a general idea for evaluation of it. First, it's going to be a longitudinal questionnaire that you email out to recently graduated EKU students every 3, 6, and 12 months after they graduate. This questionnaire is going to be super simple. Just ask them what their career is, how well they've transitioned into the workforce from school, and that will let you see if success in post-grad life is correlated at all to their CLA Plus scores, to see if the assessment has actual, real, good predictive utility for your population at EKU. And then finally, a second kind of evaluation is just after the assessment is administered to students, is to just ask them again, how do you feel about the assessment? Do you think it's worth your time? What kind of effort did you put into it? Do you think it's an accurate representation of how prepared you are for this kind of collegiate exodus that you have coming up? And just get their qualitative feedback about it to see how they perceive it, and to see if there's anything else you can do either in the campaigning stage or implementation stage to really increase that ability for students to buy in to the usefulness of the assessment. So yeah, that's a review of the effectiveness, the utility, implementation, and evaluation of the CLA Plus, as well as some alternatives if you would like. If you have any questions, then please feel free to contact me again, and I will be happy to answer them and work with you in whatever pathway you deem to be the best one for you. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to work with EKU.